Welcome back to Theology Savage. We're here in Psalm 50, and Psalm 50 is an amazing psalm in the sense that it exposes our idolatry and God's unwillingness to let it slide. His desire. I was reading a book earlier by a theologian. Great work here. It's called Systematic Theology. It's written by gal Catherine Sonderreger, and she likened God's holiness, his holiness, to his wrath for good. And I was floored when I read that. When we think of God's wrath, we think of his just judgment, his response to, wickedness and sin and all sorts of disobedience and things that dishonor him. It's just, it's good, it's proper, it's never ill-measured. But she likened his holiness to his wrath for good, and it was very thought-provoking, because in Psalm 50 we read of God's people. God likens himself to one who speaks and who acts, and then what you have is his people offering all these sacrifices as if God was hungry and as if God needed something to drink. In other words, they were going through these rote mechanical processes to try to appease God, to try to please God. And of course, God doesn't need any of these things. He says in Psalm 50, he says, "For every beast of the forest is mine, and the cattle on 1,000 hills. If I were hungry, I would not tell you, for the world and its fullness are mine." And what he says is he's pretty upset because these people have cast his words behind their back. They haven't listened to his words. The sacrifice that he wants is one of thanksgiving and obedience, and yet they're trying to offer all these sacrifices and just check their religiosity almost off the list and doing what they think they can do for God and what God needs. And he says, "You thought that the I am was altogether like you." In other words, we can make God in our image. We can project ourselves onto God the way that we are, the way that our emotions or attributes are, and project those exactly onto God rather than attending to what God's revealed about himself in Scripture. And it's very dangerous because he says that he will come to judge and rebuke them to their face. And Psalm 50 is a good psalm because it's a sobering reminder that we ought not to make God in our image, but rather let our understanding and the way that we view God and perceive God and even relate to God be informed by the way he's revealed himself, certainly in redemptive history in the Old and New Testaments and in this Holy Scriptures. Be blessed.